for today, Thursday, the 29th January 2026. Good to be with you, listeners. Thank you so much for joining. We know that you have choices. We're happy when you come here, happier when you find reasons to stay. This is the hotline.
Emily's views, her position on the issues, her point of view backed up by the facts. Here are Emily's views.
Listeners, sometimes they say the stone that the builder refused will be the head cornerstone. It is not a recent invention. In fact, it is traced back to the Bible, used and applied in many situations in modern societies. I couldn't help but whisper this adage, this line to myself last week as I watched the proceedings in the nation's parliament when proposed amendments to the Jury Act had to be, debate on the amendments had to be stalled because what was brought to the parliament literally made a mockery of logic, and I was forced to wonder, really, what sort of vetting, what sort of instructions are being given concerning the drafting of these so-called bills or amendment to laws that are being taken to the nation's parliament? What is going on? I told you on this program before that Mark Golding's understanding of laws, his ability to pick up something that is put in front of him, even within minutes, and his ability to rip it apart is perhaps second only to, in my view, that of Marlene Malahoo Fort. Some of you didn't listen. I told you that on the floor of the parliament, the government side has little or no legal experience comparable, not only experience, diligence comparable to that of Marlene Malahoo Fort. And so her absence from the cabinet would be reflected in very stark way in this parliament. And I've watched this young lady trying to assist. One of the times she had to go next to a minister to try and assist with the darts that were coming from the opposition leader when he commented or when the opposition members tried to ask questions on what was before the parliament. But on this jury bill, and you know, I share sentiments expressed again in the parliament by leader of opposition Mark Golding, in that it is becoming exceedingly difficult to find anything at all concerning bills being tabled in Parliament, because I understand now that the Parliament is going through procurement process to try and get an individual who will populate the Jamaica Parliament.gov.jm website with the frequency with which it needs to be populated with all of these bills that the public must have sight of when they're tabled. And from what I'm hearing from Mr. Golding, when he takes the objections in the Parliament, not even the long form of the law, the present law is not being given to them. So people are not even understanding on the floor what is the current state, and therefore look at what amendments are being proposed to see how the actual law is going to change. So if you don't have full working knowledge of law, legal systems, understand what the mischief is that they're seeking to remedy, then a lot of the discussions in the Parliament will amount to little or nothing. So they had this session last week on this jury amendment bill, where the Justice Minister, Delroy Chuck, desires, and understandably so, to have the stipend given to jurors moved from 2,000 to, I believe, 6,000. But on top of that, that wasn't the simple amendment that was needed. There were other things that were being proposed on top of the promise that the government will have a joint select committee at a later time to review whether there needs to be substantial changes in the law such that a judge is at liberty to discharge the panel of jurors where he's satisfied that there are attempts to tamper the jury pool, and or discussions are to be had about whether and to what degree we continue with trial by jury or judge alone. So substantive changes to the law may come after a joint select committee is set up to examine and to take submissions from the wider public on this issue that has become the subject of great discussions, even coming from the Chief Justice calling for the use more of judge-alone trials because of the delays and so forth in the system. So there's going to be a whole debate on that. But in the midst of that being coming, the Justice Minister, Delroy Chuck, brought this amendment to the House. Mark Golding made a very important point, which is that you really didn't need to amend the law to change the stipend to jurors, because the regulations allow affirmative resolution for the minister to make that change by affirmative resolution. So you can actually do that, and then the substantive issues surrounding jury trials, you could then refer it to a joint select committee so that we don't do a sort of piecemeal approach to amendments to the Jury Act. But as I sat and listened to what was being proposed, one of the ones I find to be offensive almost. There's a proposal in this amendment which has now been stalled, that if in a civil matter one of the parties elects to have a trial by jury, then if that party loses, then that party is supposed to pay the cost of a jury having to sit. Not only is it extremely offensive, and as Mark Golding said, it is perhaps entertaining some sort of conflict of interest into the system, but I don't even know how exactly it intends to work, in that you cannot know who has lost the matter until the matter is tried. And even after the matter is tried, the party who has lost has a right to appeal. And the party can appeal all the way to the Privy Council, depending on the nature of the matter and the judicature appellate rules and so forth. They can go all the way. And if they're exhausting those options, I don't even know when it is one will know who has lost, and at what point in time will this person pay the jurors. Is it that the government is proposing in a civil matter to advance the stipend to the jurors and thereafter cream it back from the party when the party has exhausted all options of appeal to the Privy Council? I do not know, but the whole idea in that provision is so offensive to the perception of conflict of interest that I cannot even imagine how and why it made its way into a bill amending the Jury Act. That alone doesn't pass the smell test. I don't know its origin, but it is completely inappropriate. But on top of that, so this thing was such a sort of panoply, a hodgepodge of stuff that didn't quite make sense. And as I listened, I was wondering, what on earth is going on? And I heard Mrs. Malahoo Fort trying to dance between the raindrops because she remains a member of the government, though a backbencher. And it seems to me she was trying so hard to save face in the comments that she made when she did speak. But this moment was not lost on Isaac Buchanan, the MP for Portland Eastern. And Isaac Buchanan had the gall to say this in the House of, this is Isaac Buchanan part DT. Isaac Buchanan said this in the House of Parliament. Let's hear.
When we were dealing with this matter, first of all,
not that one. Let me find the Isaac. Hold on a second. This is Isaac Buchanan.
Painstakingly read the legislation and wondered if the member from, well, I didn't wonder. I kind of said that the member from Western St. James, West Central St. James, took no part in this legislation. I just wondered, because I know the government doesn't do pitchy-patchy work. And that person is very, and the member from West Central St. James is very pedantic and exacting. And that is a compliment. So it is not an attack on my friend. I have great respect for that member. But to say that, I just think that I'm not accusing you, Minister. I'm just saying that I think that many things weren't considered in relation to where we need to go. And I'm just rising to say that I'm hoping that as a House we're not embarrassed by passing a legislation that has too many holes, and then the general social media will say all we did was copy and paste, and we didn't have mature consideration and all the critiques that come from it. And
yes. Imagine that. This member was brave enough, being an opposition member, to say that when he read this thing, he couldn't help but wonder whether the member from West Central St. James had a hand in it. In fact, he knew. He knew she didn't have any hand in it. because there were so many issues related to the proposed amendments that the debate had to be stalled. To his credit, though, Minister Chuck, after hearing everything that was said, and most notably the comments by Mark Golding, he decided to hold his hand and not carry the bill through all its concluding stages. Not for the first time. Not for the first time something comes, the intention is to walk it through, and it had to be pulled. Yeah? Had to be pulled. So I don't know what is going on. I don't know. I tell you something. I keep saying this. It is so, the major primary function of a member of parliament is that you are a lawmaker. Making law is such a difficult thing because law requires precision in language, but more importantly, the instructions given to the drafters are integral. I have come to realize that it is very important, and we benefited a great deal in having the Attorney General sitting in the Parliament, because a lot of what the Parliament discusses, it seems to me that when the instructions come to be drafted, to be sent, instructions to be sent rather to the drafters, if you're not in the chamber and paying keen attention to the nuances, then the instructions may be substantially different from the issue that is desirous of a law. And what I found is that when we had the AG sitting there, the instructions, certainly the bills tabled, they mirrored to a great extent the discussions that were taking place in the Parliament. I think this Parliament is suffering, and it is being battered and bruised by the leader of the opposition because of his attention to detail, and he's calling out a lot of things from the government side and sending them back to the drawing board. It is not having the scrutiny of legal eyes and questions inside the cabinet before it comes out in the wash in Parliament. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good at all. The last thing is that we have had some clarity now from the Jamaica Public Service Company on the quantum it desires in its restoration of electricity to the entire island. You may recall from last year in the Parliament, we heard a number of figures, 350 million, and then 150 million based on a loan advance by the government, and it wasn't clear whether JPS needs more than the government 150, and if so, what are the sources from which they'd find that additional funding. The President and CEO appeared before the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee and provided some important clarity on that, plus some other matters. I will let you hear that during the course of the program because we raised that issue here, and it's good that we now have some sort of clarity from JPS. This is the hotline.